The docking bay smelled like burnt ozone, old socks, and bureaucracy. The kind of place where ships came to die, deals came to unravel, and travelers came to regret their decisions. Halen Prime called itself a trade outpost, but it was more of a cosmic junk drawer, filled with things you forgot you owned and didn't want to touch barehanded. She stepped off the ship in silence, long coat trailing behind her like a shadow that had forgotten how to cling. The coat was a gift from a trader she'd saved once on Vega 7, who'd insisted she take it as payment. It was 6 sizes too large and smelled faintly of cheese, but it hid her well. More importantly, it hid them from her. The stares, the whispers, the not-so-quiet remarks. Is that one of the pointy-eared ones? No, too tall. She's Elendari, I think. You can tell by the ears. They curve like a harp. Ugly harp. She kept walking. Step, step, breathe. She wasn't sure when silence had become her armor, but it fit better than anything else these days. Words led to questions. Questions led to memories. And memories, well, they had sharp edges. At the far end of the hangar, a man leaned against a stack of magnetic cargo crates, arms crossed, expression set to mildly unimpressed. He looked like the kind of soldier who hadn't worn a pressed uniform in a decade, but still had the nerve to salute you sarcastically. A jagged scar ran from his temple to the edge of his jaw like a misplaced comma, and his left eye was cybernetic, glowing faint blue under the low lighting, flickering every so often, like it couldn't quite decide whether to pay attention. "Name's Cam Wren," he said with a nod that was either greeting or acknowledgement of existential despair. "You're the specialist?" She raised an eyebrow. "You sound disappointed. I was hoping for someone taller. I can stand on a crate if it'll help." A beat. Then he grinned, and for the first time in what felt like years, she didn't feel like someone had stuck a pin in her chest just for walking into a room. They moved out together toward the mission briefing hub, where someone with too many stripes and not enough common sense explained the job. Escort a high-priority relic, something old, weird, and glowing faintly with power that defied known physics, through 4 unstable wormholes to a secure site on Lyra 4. "Cultural significance," the officer said. "Delicate material. Do not shake the container." "Is it alive?" Cam asked, scratching the back of his neck. "It was once." Cam turned to her. "Great. So we're babysitting Schrodinger's soul jar." She didn't laugh. Not yet. But she almost did. A flicker of something warmer than indifference stirred at the edge of her mouth. Maybe he saw it. Maybe he didn't. He kept talking anyway. The vessel they were assigned to was named the Jubilant Error, a name that inspired precisely zero confidence. It was held together with ductile memory tape, prayer, and what she suspected might be stubbornness in liquid form. Its AI introduced itself as regret, then added, "Don't worry, that's just my name. My function is to minimize yours." They boarded without ceremony, Cam tossing his gear down in the nearest unclaimed bunk while she wandered toward the cockpit, fingers brushing the control panel like she could read the ship's history in scratches and carbon scoring. She always did that. Touch first, speak later. Machines didn't flinch when you looked at them wrong. By mid-cycle, they were underway, the first wormhole crackling into view like a wound in space trying desperately not to bleed. It shimmered in unnatural hues, colors you couldn't name and weren't sure you were supposed to see. Regret hummed nervously as they crossed the event threshold. "I once dated a wormhole navigator," Cam offered casually as their ship buckled and screamed like an upset dragon. "Tried to impress her by learning fifth-dimensional math. Didn't go well. How'd it end? I proposed. She calculated the statistical probability of our long-term success. Told me we had a 3.7% chance of mutual happiness." She glanced at him, arching one long brow. "I said I liked those odds. She said she liked prime numbers better." The ship lurched violently, and for a second they both grabbed onto the same rail. Their hands touched. Her fingers were colder than expected. His grip was warm and calloused. Neither let go immediately. They emerged on the other side into the empty maw of space. Calm now. Quiet again. The silence didn't feel so heavy. In the days that followed, they encountered the usual interstellar obstacles. Rogue patrols, gravitational anomalies, and a customs check-in operated by sentient slugs with a bureaucratic kink. One demanded to see her identification, sniffed, then handed it back with the comment, "Oh dear, that's unfortunate." "Which part?" she asked. "The photo," the slug replied. "You should smile more." She nearly incinerated the booth with her glare. Cam diffused the moment by smuggling out a packet of snack cubes shaped like earth cats. "Emergency cuteness ration," he explained, "for when people are irredeemable." She accepted one. It tasted like chalk and betrayal, but it helped. They talked more after that, slowly, cautiously, like strangers stuck in the same escape pod. She learned he'd grown up on a terraform colony that had failed 3 times before succeeding. He learned she'd been cast out before she could even prove herself. He didn't flinch when she told him the Elendari had rules about symmetry and aesthetics. Didn't recoil when she said she'd been tested, measured, and found visually insufficient. "They're idiots," he said simply. "And you're a philosopher." "No, I just have working eyes." She turned away so he wouldn't see her face twist. But the warmth lingered. Not a fire, just an ember. But she remembered what fire felt like. On the 4th night of transit, during a lull between emergency system repairs and rerouted flight paths, Cam found her in the observation bay, staring out at a swirl of cosmic dust illuminated by twin suns. He leaned on the railing beside her, arms folded, his voice low. "You know, you're beautiful." It hit like a disruptor blast, not because of the words themselves, but because he meant them. Not as flattery, not as some half-hearted attempt at camaraderie. He'd said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. She barked a laugh, sudden and rough and startled even to her. "You're terrible at lying." "I'm terrible at lots of things," he said, "but I'm very good at noticing beauty." She shook her head, lips twitching, fighting off a smile like it might cost her something. "You're lucky I'm not the violent type." "Oh, I'm very unlucky," he said deadpan. "But at least now I'll die knowing I was honest." The galaxy stretched before them, dangerous, chaotic, and unwritten, and for the first time in a very long while, she didn't feel quite so alone. The second wormhole greeted them like a drunk uncle at a family reunion. Loud, unpredictable, and full of chaotic energy that smelled faintly of burnt lithium. Regret, their semi-depressed ship AI, gave them a warning that was half helpful, half existential crisis. "Wormhole stability at 62%, it said. "Probability of successful passage, 79.4%. "Probability of retaining your original number of limbs, 63.1%. "Estimated regret, high." "Great," Cam muttered, strapping himself in. "Just how I like my chances. Slightly better than a coin toss and a dash of existential dread." She didn't reply. She was already at the navigation console, fingers flying across the haptic interface, plotting a course that danced between collapsing gravitational nodules and debris fields, held together by magnetic spite. Her ears twitched slightly, a sign he'd learned meant she was focusing hard or suppressing the urge to kill something. Possibly both. They slid into the wormhole with a sound like reality being crumpled and reassembled by someone on a caffeine high. Stars bent sideways. Light turned into spirals. Time flickered like a damaged light panel. Cam closed his eyes and thought about puppies. Specifically, puppies in tiny spacesuits. It helped. They emerged with only minor injuries. Cam's pride and regret's last coolant duct, which hissed mournfully. She stood immediately, scanned the sensor logs, and froze. The cargo pulsed. Cam blinked. "Pulsed?" She nodded. "Once. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat." "Well, that's horrifying." The cargo, sealed in a quantum-stabilized vault buried in the engine room, was now glowing faintly through its casing. It was cube-shaped, etched with runes that shimmered in patterns she recognized from old Elendari text. Ones not taught anymore. Ones that usually meant things like ascension or collapse. She frowned. This wasn't supposed to activate. "You're saying the ancient alien artifact we're transporting with no backup plan is doing something unpredictable?" Cam asked. Shocking. They descended into the cargo bay, where the artifact pulsed again, like a giant metal heart trying to remember how to beat. She approached cautiously, reaching out, not touching, just sensing. There was a hum, low, steady, familiar in a way that scratched at the back of her mind like an old memory that refused to stay buried. "It's trying to communicate," she said. Cam tilted his head. "With what?" "Possibly me." "Well, that's flattering." She shot him a look. He raised his hands. "Hey, I'm just saying. If a galaxy-old piece of alien tech starts flirting, I want to be emotionally prepared." But he stepped back when she knelt by the vault, closed her eyes and reached deeper. Not with her hands, but with the part of her that still clung to her Elandari birthright. Her people had always had a kind of resonance with certain relics. Living tech, they called it. Machines that didn't just function, but felt. And this one felt her. It showed her flashes, visions pressed against her mind like memories not her own. A city of light built in symmetry so perfect it hurt to look at. A child standing alone on the outskirts, her ears too long, her features asymmetrical. Voices saying, outlier, flawed, exiled. She jerked away, breath caught in her throat. "You okay?" Cam was closer now, crouched beside her, his voice softer than she expected. "It's not just a relic, it's a key, a tool, a judge." He raised an eyebrow. "Well, that doesn't sound ominous at all." She looked at him, eyes dark with knowledge she hadn't wanted to remember. "The mirror pulse doesn't show what you are. It shows what others see when they look at you. And if it stays on long enough, it makes that perception real." Cam stared at the cube, then at her, then back. "So it's like a cosmic review aggregator, but instead of stars, it alters your existence based on public opinion." "More or less." "Ugh, it's like high school, but with worse consequences." She tried not to smile. She failed just a little. They secured the vault again, reinforced it with 4 layers of null energy mesh, and debated whether or not to warn command. Cam voted no. "If we tell them it's active, they'll pull us out and send in a science team full of egos and clipboards. You ever seen what happens when 6 scientists argue over a relic? It's like watching cats fight in a zero-gravity bathroom." She had not, but the image was vivid. They agreed to continue. Carefully, quietly. But nothing stayed quiet for long. They were 5 hours from the next wormhole when they were intercepted. A small cruiser dropped out of fold space, weapons locked, engines humming a frequency that meant business. The hull was marked with crimson glyphs, Terran lords, rogue faction, military rejects, war profiteers, in general disappointments with good aim and no manners. "Hail incoming," Regret intoned, translating aggressive posturing and overcompensation into galactic standard. The screen lit up with a broad-shouldered man in armor, too shiny for comfort and a smile too practiced to trust. "This is Captain Ril Tark of the Honor Fang. You are carrying a device of ancient power. We want it. Kindly surrender, and we'll only mildly obliterate you." Cam rolled his eyes. "Honor Fang? That sounds like a dentist's nightmare." "Stall him," she said, already tapping into the ship's defense overrides. Cam leaned in toward the screen. "Sorry, did you say surrender?" "Funny story. We already tried that once. Gave up to some vending machines on Hadros 9. They made us fight to the death over a burrito." Captain Tark blinked. "Are you mocking me?" "No," Cam said. "This is just how we communicate. It's part of our charm." The enemy opened fire. Regret screamed. The ship jolted, lights flickering. Panels burst. She hit the deck, rolled, came up shooting. Plasma rounds lit the corridor as boarders spilled in through breach pods. She moved like lightning bottled in a body, silent, deadly, graceful even when killing. Cam followed, covering her back, shouting obscenities that might have been battle cries or breakfast orders. By the time the last boarder dropped, Cam was bleeding from the shoulder. She was scorched along her ribs, and the vault was humming again. They sat in the corridor, breathing hard. Blood and oil pooled between them. "That," Cam said, "was not how I wanted to spend this afternoon. I thought you liked surprises. I like birthday surprises, not death ambushes from narcissistic space pirates." She leaned her head back against the wall, eyelids fluttering. "Still think I'm beautiful?" she asked, voice hoarse. He looked at her, really looked. The smudges of ash, the crack in her lip, the gleam of strange light beneath her skin. Especially now. And for a second, the hum of the mirror pulse matched the rhythm of her heart. The final wormhole loomed before them, a spiraling wound in space that pulsed like a living thing with indigestion. The ship, bruised and battered, groaned with every maneuver, its hull held together by patches of willpower and emergency sealant that smelled vaguely of burnt pickles. Regret's voice crackled through the bridge speakers like an old friend trying to whisper gossip from across a crowded bar. Entering this wormhole has a 92% success rate. However, the remaining 8% may involve spontaneous musical numbers or emotional revelations. Proceed at your own risk, Cam chuckled, his shoulder still wrapped in a makeshift sling made from one of his socks. Honestly, I'd prefer a musical number over another pirate boarding. She didn't answer right away. She was at the controls again, her hands steady despite the phantom ache in her ribs. The mirror pulse hadn't acted up since the last attack, but she could still feel it, waiting, watching, whispering in a voice only she could hear. Not words exactly, more like a question. Who are you now? They entered the wormhole. This one was different, wilder, more sentient. It twisted around them, and not just their ship, around them. Their thoughts, their fears. Space bent, and so did reality. She saw flashes again, but not just from the artifact. These came from her own mind, dredged up by the wormhole's merciless pull. She saw herself as a child, ears too long, standing in front of a mirrored wall in an Elendari academy. Students whispered. Adults avoided eye contact. The instructor had said she was exceptionally capable, but tragically aesthetic. It had felt like someone had tried to compliment a malfunctioning toaster. Next to her, Cam was watching his own montage. She saw it play in the flicker of his eyes. Battlefields, laughter. The moment he realized he was good at surviving, but terrible at staying. One hand drifted toward hers, not grabbing, not pressing, just there. A tether. They emerged on the other side intact, which, given their history, felt like winning the Galactic lottery. The secure facility on Lyra 4 glowed beneath them, sterile white domes nestled in an Arctic valley. The scientists who greeted them wore layered coats and tired eyes and took the cargo with reverent caution. Your mission is complete, one said, clipboard in hand. Payment transferred, debrief scheduled. Cam, never one for formalities, squinted. So, we just hand over the cosmic mood cube and go home? That's the procedure. She watched the vault disappear into the hands of men who would study it, dissect it, never understand it. The hum in her chest dulled. She'd thought there'd be more at the end. Fireworks, revelation, a parade with alien confetti, and maybe a complimentary therapy session. Instead, they sat in the hangar, alone with lukewarm coffee and silence. You miss it already, Cam said. No, she lied. He sipped the coffee, made a face. They should use this stuff as a chemical weapon. She looked at him. Really looked, beyond the jokes and the slouch and the sarcasm. He'd nearly died more than once because of this job, because of her. He never once blamed her, never once looked away from her ears, her scars, her silence. I was trained to hide, she said quietly, taught that being unseen was safer, that if I couldn't be accepted, I should at least be invisible. Cam set the cup down. You're terrible at invisible. I'm trying to be worse at it. A pause, then he smiled. Good. Start with yelling at someone. It's very cathartic. She did later, when a transport officer tried to charge her double because he didn't trust Elendari math. She gave him a verbal dismantling so clinical it left Cam applauding, and the officer blinking like he'd just been audited by a deity. Their ship, the Jubilant Error, was repaired enough to limp back into deep space. Regret had updated its software and was slightly more optimistic, at least in the way a sentient AI could fake enthusiasm. Where to now? Cam asked as they launched. She looked out at the stars, each one a place that had once rejected her, each one now a maybe. I want to find the others, she said. Cam raised an eyebrow. Others? There are more like me. Outliers, misfits, thrown away by a galaxy obsessed with symmetry. I want to find them. He leaned back in the pilot's seat, kicking his boots up. Sounds like a terrible idea. She smiled. You're coming anyway, he smirked. Obviously, someone has to make sure you don't become a cult leader with really long speeches. And so they set course toward uncertainty, toward danger, toward places where forgotten people waited to be reminded they mattered. She didn't wear silence like armor anymore. She wore her scars, her ears, her voice. And when someone asked who she was, she didn't whisper. She looked them in the eye and said, I'm the one who wasn't supposed to be beautiful, and I'm still here. Behind her, the mirror pulse, now dormant, sealed away, remained quiet. But if it could have spoken, it might have said, now you see her, and more importantly, now she sees herself.